After my dad's funeral, when everyone was talking about who was getting what, his money, his stocks, my brother-in-law, who's married to my sister Sadie, suddenly declared that everything, including the $5 million, should go to Sadie for being the older sister. My sister and brother-in-law were thrilled, but the attorney told them they couldn't just decide that on their own. My name is Doyle Evans. I'm 42, work in sales, and have a wife and 2 kids. My dad had a major stake in a company, and despite his age, he was still working. My older sister, Sadie, has always been a problem for my parents because of her bad behavior. Now in her middle age, she still doesn't have a steady job and just lives however she pleases. I've never liked her, so I've always kept my distance. Then, when she turned 50, she showed up at the house out of the blue with some guy and announced, "I'm getting married." The guy, Harvey Bishop, is young and handsome, but pretty lazy and not at all pleasant. My sister started asking my dad for money for the wedding like it was the most normal thing in the world. She burned through the money in no time and still had the nerve to ask for more, which infuriated my dad. She figured she was going to inherit everything one day anyway, so why not? I just watched her with cold detachment. Less than a year after they got married, my dad had a heart attack while playing on the golf course at the country club and passed away a few days later. It hit me hard, and I was devastated. The sudden news of his death shocked all his friends, and our family was flooded with messages and calls of condolence, but I couldn't just sit around crying. I took charge and helped my mom, who was paralyzed with grief, with all the arrangements for the wake and burial. As usual, my sister was nowhere to be found, off doing her own thing. After the funeral, completely exhausted, my mom and I could finally breathe a little. But the next day, an attorney came to the house to discuss my dad's will. My mom and I already knew what it said, but my sister and her husband barged in, completely clueless about what was happening, and dropped a bombshell. All of Dad's stocks and the $5 million inheritance are going to my wife, the eldest daughter, so don't even think about it. My mom and I were speechless at such audacity. "We did it, Sadie. We're set for life," my brother-in-law shouted, pumping his fist in celebration. The attorney, clearly taken aback, intervened. "Just a moment." While my sister shot him a death glare, the attorney looked at them firmly and said, "Sadie, you have no right to inherit." My sister and brother-in-law froze and started to protest. "That can't be right. Sadie is the eldest child. She should get everything." It was obvious my brother-in-law was betting everything on this inheritance, convinced my sister would get the lion's share. Their faces changed when the attorney lowered his voice and asked, "Are you not aware that Sadie is not Mr. Evans's biological daughter?" Suddenly, my sister's face went pale and she looked at my mom. My mom wore a complicated expression. I had always known Sadie was my half-sister, but it had been kept from her. She started to tremble and grabbed my mom desperately. "Mom, what does this mean?" "What does it mean, Sadie? You're from my previous marriage," my mom murmured, shaken by the force of my sister's grip. My sister, who had so often mocked me for being the favorite child, was now stunned. But according to her, since she was raised as his daughter, she should have inheritance rights. My brother-in-law jumped in, his voice rising. "Isn't that right, Sadie?" "Yeah, I thought so," my sister replied, but my mom shook her head. There was no legal adoption. My sister and brother-in-law looked incredulous. "No way, I'm the oldest daughter. Even Dad said so." My sister's rage turned on me. "I'm not going to let you get away with everything," she snapped. Irritated by her sense of entitlement, I shot back, "After all the support Dad gave you, you still say that? Just shut up." My sister and brother-in-law protested, "What's wrong with a father supporting his daughter?" I sighed, feeling the weight of the situation. It's normal for parents to support their kids, but my sister had been using Dad's money for years to pay off debts and get out of all sorts of trouble. My mom, who had been quiet until then, said, "Why don't we let Sadie see the will too?" "The will? I don't know anything about that," my sister panicked. It was her own fault for not paying attention. My dad had wanted us all to discuss its contents when he made it, but my sister had dismissed it and gone off to have fun. When I mentioned this, my brother-in-law shot her a fierce look. "What were you thinking? This was important." Faced with what to do, they agreed to listen. Then the attorney revealed my dad's will. It made it clear that the inheritance was for my mom and me. It also explained why my dad never legally adopted my sister. He had considered it at first, but grew disappointed by how she treated me, her half-brother, and by her reckless spending as she got older. "So I'm not entitled to anything," my sister said, stunned. Suddenly, my brother-in-law raised his voice, accusing her. "You lied to me. You told me you had money." His attitude turned aggressive. My mom and sister were shocked, but I wasn't surprised. My brother-in-law had always shown his greed. He probably even married my sister for the money. "Don't come back until you get some money, understand? Money," he ordered her. "Wait, Harvey, what do you mean? I thought I was going to be rich. What a letdown," my sister stammered. Shoving her roughly, my brother-in-law stormed out of the room. My sister, left behind, looked at us with hatred and screamed at my mom. "Mom, why didn't you have him adopt me? It's not fair that you two get to keep the inheritance. I should have gotten something. This is horrible." She made a scene. I was stunned by her outburst, but the attorney was unfazed, as if he was used to it. "Why does he get everything?" my sister shrieked. "Because I'm Dad's son," I answered. My sister's eyes filled with fury, and she lunged at me, screaming, "It would have been better if you were never born." I thought that even if I hadn't existed, my dad would have likely made the same decision, given my sister's character. Before I could say anything, the attorney calmly intervened. "Sadie, if you continue like this, the police will have to get involved." My sister froze, perhaps remembering her past incidents of shoplifting. My mom called out her name, her eyes filled with tears. 6 months passed, and the probate process went smoothly. Although my sister and brother-in-law grumbled for a while, the attorney's efficient handling left them no room to interfere. My mom gave my sister some money, and I chose not to say anything. What bothered me most was that they disappeared with that money, displaying a shameless interest in cashing in, leaving a bad taste among the relatives who knew what was happening. One day, at my wife's suggestion, I took my mom, wife, and daughter out to eat. My mom, who had been withdrawn since my dad's death, seemed more cheerful with her adorable granddaughter. "Mom, why don't you come live with us?" I proposed. "But you know Sadie shows up sometimes, only when she needs money. Don't be such a pushover with her." My mom hesitated. It was understandable, as my sister is her biological daughter. And besides, if we moved into the family home, my sister might stir up trouble again. Respecting her concerns, I asked her to think about it. I drove her back to the family home. When we arrived, we saw lights on in a house that was supposed to be empty. It wasn't time for the housekeeper to be there, so maybe my sister had come back. With that in mind, I parked the car in the garage. "Let's go in for a quick coffee," I suggested. As soon as we got out and walked toward the entrance, a car screeched towards us, nearly running us over. My daughter screamed. I instinctively shielded my wife. The car barely grazed me, but it threw me into a flower bed, and I hit the ground hard. The car stopped after crashing into the garage entrance. "Are you okay, honey?" My wife and daughter ran to help me up while my mom stood trembling in the doorway, clearly terrified. Chaos erupted. I was taken to the hospital by ambulance and had to stay overnight. I later found out the driver was Harvey Bishop. He told the police he mixed up the accelerator and the brake, but I doubted his explanation. When my mom and sister visited me in the hospital, my sister looked at me coldly and remarked, "You're surprisingly tough, aren't you?" I couldn't help but think that if I had been seriously injured, my mom would have inherited everything. "Tough luck for you," I said with a smirk. My sister tensed. "You were counting on that, weren't you?" I noticed her discomfort as she looked away. "Well, my mom told me she's planning to sign her share of the inheritance over to me, so causing an accident like this was pointless." My sister was stunned. It seemed incomprehensible to her that someone would give up what they could inherit. "I have a wife and kids, so my mom asked me to leave it to them. That's what parents do." "But," my sister stammered. "Besides, I made a will early on following my dad's example," I continued, leaving her speechless. "So, unfortunately for you, my share won't be going to my mom anymore. My sister trembled as she stared at me. "Can't you give me just a little? It's $5 million, isn't it?" When I firmly refused, her face twisted with rage, and she grabbed my shirt collar. "Give me half! I'm your sister!" I looked at her with pity as she continued to scream in an unsettling tone, as if the idea of the inheritance was driving her mad. "Don't you realize your greed would have disappointed Dad?" My sister's face turned red with anger, and she reached for my throat. "Sadie, what are you doing?" My mom returned, raising her voice just as nurses arrived to remove my sister from the room. Though my mom seemed inclined to defend her, it was clear my sister had hurled insults at her too. "Where did I go wrong in raising her?" my mom said sadly. It broke my heart to hear her like that. Shortly after, my mom got sick. As she got worse, my wife and I started helping with transportation and household chores at the family home. That seemed to annoy my sister, maybe because she had run into my wife during her visits to ask for money, or because my mom told her about our help. One day, my sister called me out of the blue. "From now on, we'll take care of Mom. You two don't have to come over anymore," she declared. "What is this about?" I tried to reason, but my sister wouldn't listen and hung up, saying it was already decided. I confirmed it with my wife. She had been told the same thing and was also pushed away. Worried about my sister's lack of experience in caregiving or running a household, I called my mom immediately. Surprisingly, my brother-in-law claimed to have some caregiving experience. At that time, my mom was still fairly independent, so for the time being, it seemed manageable. I felt a little relieved. However, in less than a month, my mom was rushed to the hospital by ambulance due to a medication dosage error. When we arrived, she looked alarmingly frail. The doctor was puzzled. My mom had never made a mistake like that. While my wife stayed with her, I went back to the family home and found it a complete mess. The refrigerator was empty, even though my mom loved to cook, and it looked like the housekeeping service had been canceled without anyone mentioning it. I was ashamed to have ever considered trusting my sister and was filled with rage. A significant amount of money had been withdrawn from my mom's bank account, even though her card and PIN were kept in the safe. Luckily, the account holding the inheritance was untouched in a bank's safe deposit box, but almost all the money for daily expenses was gone. I gathered essentials for my mom's hospital stay along with her bank card and went back to explain the situation. "Sadie," my mom managed to say, but she seemed to know nothing about the card. However, when I asked about the medication error, she looked down and confessed that my brother-in-law had prepared the dose. "Mom, maybe it's best not to let Sadie in the house again," I suggested. "Son, I promise I'll take care of myself, but the house is a mess, and you've lost so much weight." "Have you been eating properly?" she said. Her words weighed on me. "Mom, come live with us. I'll make a home where we can all be together," I proposed. My mom burst into tears, but her health continued to decline despite the doctor's efforts. Maybe the incident with my sister had weakened her heart. She never recovered and eventually passed away, almost as if she were following my dad. When I returned to the family home to arrange the funeral, I discovered that all the valuables had disappeared. It seemed my sister and brother-in-law had taken them in their desperate search for money. Standing in the middle of empty rooms, I was first stunned, then consumed by a brutal fury. I swore I would make them responsible for what they had done. The day after my mom's funeral, my sister and I had an appointment with the attorney, supposedly to discuss the inheritance. "Too bad, but Mom's inheritance belongs to me, her daughter," my sister declared shamelessly. I couldn't help but laugh. She was gravely mistaken. "Let's see what the will says," I suggested. When the attorney opened the document, the color drained from my sister's face. "No, this can't be. Sadie has no right to inherit anything." "That was your mother's final wish," the attorney said. "That's what your mom wanted," my brother-in-law exploded. But the attorney calmly repeated the same thing. "This is absurd. Sadie is that woman's biological daughter," my brother-in-law yelled, angrily sweeping things off the table. "You can't fool us. Give us the inheritance now. Harvey, did you try to harm my mom?" I confronted him. He shot me an irritated look. "What? I never did anything like that," he replied. "Then why was there a mistake with her medication?" I pressed. My brother-in-law scowled in annoyance. Who cares about that, Doyle? The outrageous thing is that we get nothing, my sister interjected, completely unhinged. Stunned, I asked her, "What did you do?" It seemed she hadn't rushed over upon hearing of my mom's death. What she had been hoping for was for the inheritance to cover her expenses. "Tell me this isn't true. I'm not getting anything?" my sister demanded of the attorney. The attorney began to carefully explain the legal distribution, but after deducting what my sister had already taken and what she had sold, there was almost nothing left. My sister scratched her head in frustration. That outcome had been calculated in consultation with the attorney beforehand. "No way, this can't be either," my sister muttered, clearly dissatisfied. Having depended on my parents her whole life without knowing the hardship of work, she was completely detached from reality. I couldn't contain my contempt. "You said you were going to take care of Mom, but you just took her money and abandoned her. You're so ungrateful." "Caring for someone costs money, you know," my sister retorted. "What are you talking about? Show me the detailed expenses you used for Mom's care. I'll cover what's necessary," I challenged, holding out my hand. My sister's face went pale, and her lips trembled. "And without receipts, nothing will be recognized," the attorney emphasized, leaving her speechless. My brother-in-law tried to persuade me with a pleading tone. "Doyle, your sister really needs help. Can't you help her out just a little?" I refused firmly, feeling my frustration grow. It seemed my brother-in-law was also reaching his limit. If everything had gone as planned, Sadie would have the whole inheritance by now, he muttered. "What? What are you talking about?" I asked. Before I could press further, my brother-in-law let slip a comment that gave him away. "Because of this guy, nothing goes right. I was supposed to get a new car, but all I could afford were repairs." My sister tried desperately to interrupt, but it was too late. "That's a serious accusation. It sounds like fraud," the attorney said, picking up the file and offering a faint smile. "Besides, I clearly told you at the beginning that this meeting would be recorded, and you both agreed." My brother-in-law froze as he realized his mistake. I looked at him and declared, "Harvey, I'm pressing charges for that accident." "Don't be ridiculous, there's no proof," he barked. "You just provided the proof yourself," I replied. My sister burst into tears and shook my brother-in-law, furious. "You idiot, this is all your fault. What are we going to do now?" In the end, my brother-in-law faced criminal charges. His prior criminal record also came to light, and the police arrested him. My sister, identified as an accomplice, received a lesser sentence, but when she couldn't pay her rent, she sought help from relatives, and they all turned her away. As for me, I continued to work diligently without relying on any inheritance, finding a small comfort in the stock dividends as a quiet pleasure.